Okay, welcome back, guys. This is podcast number 3, and I'm joined by Craig Seaton, and I'm Chet Carson. Craig, how are you doing, brother?
I'm very well, man.
Yeah, how was your day this morning?
It's been a good day. Early sessions, a little bit of training.
Yeah.
Big Phil Potts brecking, feeling good, man.
Nice. He's drinking cacao as well. How's your cacao?
Cracking stuff. They were ceremonial grade. Like, my friend drinks a lot of it, and he recommends it. And we do it at the ceremonies or retreats, and it's just so powerful stuff. Like, it's been a great substitute to help eliminate coffee because there's no caffeine in it. And you just feel more integrated, more positive, happy. And I don't like to rely on substances outside of myself for that. But using things like, even looking at clean eating, that makes you feel good. It makes you feel better. So it's as long as things are in moderation or they're building you up and going somewhere and it's of benefit and not a crutch, then great. And this stuff, man, it's wonderful.
You used it in your cacao ceremony. I've come to it twice now. What's the benefit before you do the breath work?
It helps open you up. So it works with your heart chakra. So your energies around your heart area get to open up a little bit. And basically it helps us integrate with our feelings more. So the more of an open outlook you have, or the more comfortable or loving that you feel, the easier it is to go into any situation of confrontation or the unknown or fear-based. So a little bit of that helps us integrate and ground, and off you go. You've got a bit more strength with you. Right.
Have you seen any effects from drinking cacao before the breathwork and doing a breathwork?
Yeah, completely, man. It just helps people get deeper. And myself, from my own experimentation with it, is it does help you get deeper and let go. And it's like you're with an army, you've got that vigor and that power to go forward, and the cacao does that. It's like, I'm going in, I'm ready for this session.
Nice.
Like, with doing psychedelics in the past, you can feel like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? You can get a bit nervous before it, but when you really want that session, you're like, okay, I'm ready, I'm going in. This is sort of gives you that movement forward, a little bit of power.
Nice.
But yeah, it's great, man. It's good
stuff.
Guys,
you need to check out Craig's cacao ceremony, right?
Yeah,
it's really amazing. So let's talk about the breathwork then. So what made you get into breathwork? How did you get into it, and what's your experience been like?
So I got into the breath work maybe like 4 years ago now. So after everything kicked off with the meditation, discovering the mind and the entheogens and spirituality, religion, traditions, cultures, etc., I was always looking to get the most out of myself or get to those higher states to live in that way, to want the best for myself, or to know the truth, whatever the real truth is, and always to move in that direction. And that requires higher energy. So I'd look at ways of refining the body, getting rid of the old or the weight that would keep me blocked, and that includes ways of thinking and diet, exercise, energy, people that I'm with, all that kind of stuff. Always looking at refinement. And after doing the psychedelics on a pretty intense scale for around 2 to 3 years, it came a point where I was like, okay, I'm sort of done with that now. And then I wanted to empower myself more, which was also the thing with coffee, why I have these months where I just cut coffee out because I've become too dependent. I don't want something that will pick me up to make me feel so good. I want to be doing it myself, because it's so easy to rely and depend on these things. They have a purpose and a use, but not when we're doing them every day. It's took over ourselves.
Well, we have all the things that we need inside of us anyway. We've got the DMT, we've got access to the DMT, and it's just triggering it and starting it. And I guess psychedelics in a way triggers that, and maybe breathwork does the same thing as well, doesn't it?
It does, man. And that was it. It was like I went to Sadhguru's foundation, the Isha Foundation. They were doing a 3-day course in it was Birmingham at the time, a few years back. And I thought, I'll go to that. I want to learn these kriyas and the yoga movements and give it a go. And this was my first experience. So we did these movements over the 3 days. Mantra, meditation, and alternate nostril breathing, and then the Mula Bandha lock and the other locks in the body, so the yogic locks to retain air. Anyway, you do a specific sequence. And when it was on the very last day, we put everything together, and they played a live transmission as well from Sadhguru. Sorry, not a live transmission, a taped transmission.
Okay.
And it was through that, it's like when he was chanting and doing his whistling, it was like I was feeling it. And this was also one of my first experiences with quantum effects, how time is not what we think it is, and if you're putting out a certain energy, you can access that energy at any point without regard of time, because the energy is always there. It's just what can we tune into. That was phenomenal. So I was going through the practice, doing the breath work, which was different methods, and then at the end just do the big lock and hold, and I just started tripping, man. Like I was seeing visuals as if I'd taken something psychedelic. My body was vibrating like mad, which still happens now.
So you basically were doing holotropic breathing?
No, it wasn't holotropic.
It was regular breath work?
It was alternate nostril, but it was all done from purification. So purifying with the kriyas, the Tomo breath work, the breath of fire, to cleanse out locks, mantra, and like it was all a series. And I recommend anyone check out the program that each foundation do.
Right.
And from that, holding the breath at the end, boof! It was tripping like psychedelics, and I was like, I found it. This is it. I can do these things naturally now. We can all do these things naturally now, depending on how cleansed the body is, how open our mind is to what we can accept and believe in. Because when we don't believe in something, it can still overpower us if the subconscious or the unconscious does know and does believe in it. But if somebody's barriers are so with control and go, no, that can't happen, or no, that's not real, or I don't know how it works, so I don't have an interest in it, it's very hard to penetrate those.
Why does that happen, do you think?
I think, again, Sadhguru, when I went to see him in London one time, and that was great. But you could just feel the presence of... No, it was a big event, Right. But he says in one of his talks that people of a higher energy, they're always emitting a certain energy, as we all are, really. But it can't penetrate somebody else unless they're open to it. And I think if we consider that, think of the amount of people that we're around, the effect you have on people, or if somebody's down and you're generally quite fine, but you go around them and then you start to feel down, it also shows that we're so open. We don't have our own boundaries in place, because some people, you can be around people who are down and you can pick them up. So it's all levels of strength for our own energy, our own awareness towards it, how open we are to receiving it, because you can be around, let's say, people with depression or just a very pessimistic outlook, as another example, and there's nothing you can do that would change their mind, and that's because they're not receptive to seeing the other side, that maybe life isn't the way I think, maybe there are other options. So that mental energy, it's carved in through our belief system, our perspective, is key to what you access in your reality or what your life is about. So it's being around high-powered energy which can, spending time with you, man, always feels good. It's always easy. I'm never tired or down, and we do the easy. And we talk ages before or after, and we can still go. Because
we should probably shoot before. The conversations we have before this, leading up to this, is quite intense as it is. It's fascinating. So I found with my own personal experience with your breathwork method, the first one was very visual, and I was going through the experience, and I had a bit of a panic moment at the start, because I've never experienced these sort of feelings before, these tinglingness and stuff. And I was telling myself, look, if I don't trip, because I was listening to other people around me, and it seemed like they were having an amazing experience. And I told myself, that's Craig's.
Amateur hour there, isn't it?
Yeah, that was Craig's phone.
Keeping it real.
What kind of ringtone was that?
Standard, man. Whatever they give you.
It sounds like Star Wars.
I wish. That's not a bad show.
Yeah, we'll do a cut here.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we're back. Craig, did you answer the call, or did you just hang up?
Hung it up. Tail between my legs.
That's cool. So what were we talking about? The breathwork
your experience,
Yeah, so my first experience was the tingly sensations. It was definitely more tactile. And then I realized, okay, if I don't, because I was listening to everyone around me, and I heard these weird noises from people, and people seemed like they're having a better time than I was. But then I told myself, okay, if I don't trip, that's cool, because the experience I'm going through right now, through my senses and how it feels, I'm okay with that. The instant I did that, I tripped. And I saw a book that appeared, and then the words were coming onto the book very slowly. And I think that was my first proper trip. But since then, I don't usually tend to have a visual experience. It's all just how it feels in the body. And I just get a deep sense of relaxation. I feel like I'm floating on water. And then the last month or so that I've been coming to your classes, and also doing Scotty's classes, I felt as though I was free diving. You know how deep sea divers dive without any snorkeling gear, and they just go deep. I felt like that, and it felt really intense and amazing. But I don't get any sort of feelings of emotion, or any sort of bubbling feelings. I wonder what that is.
Yeah, I think everybody's got so much going on different levels. So you've got your emotional body, your mental body, your physical body, your energy body.
Yeah.
Depending on how clean we are in certain areas, something will come up, something that's in the unconscious that needs to be worked on, or an emotion that's been regressed and pushed down, or the stuff that we have no idea. The more we do a little bit of spring cleaning, the more you can see the dirt, right?
Right.
So the cleaner we get, the less that we not the less we'll have. Over time, yes, the less we'll have that will come out. But that will have different effects some way. So maybe somebody's got a physical injury one time and they do the breath work and they start to heal the energy, but it brings out an emotional response too. And with yourself, maybe there's just less going on that you have to clear, which can depend on your mindset and your upbringing and the traumas that we're carrying around and how open we are to the world around us rather than shutting things off. So it varies from people to people.
Do you think, so from what I remember when I used to watch a lot of Elliot Hulse's videos, he had a lot of bioenergetic releases and stuff.
Yeah.
So he talked about discharge, and something that triggered something in my head when I was watching his videos was that when we watch, again, going back to a zoological reference, when we see predators that chase prey, now let's say it's a gazelle in the African savannas being chased by a cheetah or a lion, what usually happens is if the gazelle gets away, the first thing you'll notice if the camera's on the gazelle, and you've definitely seen this in any sort of documentary, any David Attenborough documentary, you'll see that the instant the animal gets a space and he knows that it's safe, it'll shake his body off. Just like a dog would do when it enters water. All animals, generally prey animals, have this ability to discharge their energy immediately. So all that pent up adrenaline and all that is obviously not good for the body because it causes a flight or fright response. But we have to get rid of that in order to go back into our parasympathetic mode, right? So these creatures have this amazing ability to just kind of shake their body off and that's it, and they tend to forget the experience. So that's why you get those videos where you'll see wildebeest going back to the same spot that one of their friends or their relatives got caught by a crocodile. They'll go back to that same spot again because they have this amazing ability to discharge, and obviously their long-term memory is not that great, so they usually forget instantly the moment it's happened. But I found that really fascinating. Then looking at human beings, you'll see that kids and young toddlers will have an amazing ability to just discharge it by going on a rampage or stamping their feet or going on a tantrum. That's their ability to discharge that pent-up energy. So if you say to them, no, you're not going to have something, and you scold them, they'll tend to end up having a tantrum. And this is their ability to discharge it by having this tantrum. If you stop that tantrum, which is what most parents usually do, and which is what most teachers usually do, you are stopping their ability to discharge their energy, which manifests later on in life when they grow up.
Yeah.
So I found that very fascinating, and I thought, what is the one release that human beings have? Well, we're not allowed to just scream or shout randomly, are we? It's considered weird if an adult suddenly does that. So what is our ability to discharge? And I found that doing breath work, that is it. So you breathe deeply, and then when you have these pent-up emotions that have been stored in the muscles, when they come out, you address them and then you let them go. I felt like that's what I felt with my first breathwork session. I may have felt a tiny bit of emotional sense in my body. I felt a little emotional, but only a tiny amount. But I felt like whatever I had already been discharged previously. So I think maybe that's what I get from it, from other people's experiences. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, man, it's so great because thinking about what's occurring there is like going into what you're saying with the animals and being in the fear-based state. One, when we felt a bit of fear or anxiety or stress, what do? We don't shake it off. We don't figure it out. We just Netflix. I'll have a glass of wine. Time and place for everything again. I'm not against any of these things. I had a whiskey the other night. I very rarely drink, but the time was right, so I'll have one. But it's like that puts the stress, that covers it. It doesn't let it go. It doesn't let that thing that's been nagging us be released. It just pushes it to the side a little bit. And
I think we're addicted to that as a culture.
Yeah, because it's so normal. It's so normal that's how the culture treats. I mean, living here in the centre of Northern Quarter, again, it's city centre living, but you look out and all that's around town are bars and restaurants and cafes. Great, great. That's there, but what does that say about us? Why is there that much demand? Why are we putting so much into that? Have the places, it's wonderful, but just imagine what a community would be like where we're not looking for stimulation all the time or distraction or something. It's, I'll have this taste and this flavour, and again, it's nice, it's wonderful, but it shouldn't be what our main pastime is to do constantly.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it also comes back to our relationship with rejection. So when you experience rejection, whether it's through parents, friends, or someone that you like, we as a culture haven't fully comprehended how to release that tension that we have from rejection. We haven't come to terms with it. And I feel like most people turn to alcohol or sex or any other form of release just to kind of distract themselves for a bit. But everyone knows that once you're in the moment, you're fine, but as soon as those effects wear off, you go back to reality, and if it tends to hit you harder than it did in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think we need to really think about how we deal with these situations, and maybe even talk about it more often openly with people, which is not what's happening these days. People are closed off more right now than they've ever been in the last 30, 40 years, and technology again is having its effect on us in a very negative way. So I find that very fascinating.
With the conditioning and going to those things, which is because there's that sense of relief. It's not like these things are terrible or wrong, because
for the right reason, if you use it for the right context, the right reason.
People's nice, sex is incredible, food and coffee's great, but it's like seeing that's used for what it's used for, and not used to cover up something from ourselves, or we go to those comforts because that's all we know how to deal with it. Because that's where the downside is that we're not able to articulate or have that conversation, or we feel afraid to because people don't do it that way, like you said about shouting out in public, and you know, things like, oh, what's going on here, and that could be what that person, the medicine for that person to let go and to stop getting the fuck as much. It's like, I'm just going to shout out. And you know, I remember once I was really stressed, and I just had a build up over time, and I was in a bad relationship coming to the end of it, and I just come out, would have a conversation, and just went, just let it big out. She's like, what are you doing that for in public? And I was like, and I still remember it, like the imprint is clear that the person that I was with and in a relationship with judged me based on that I was stressed and I didn't know how to let go, and then let's repress that, let's not do that again in public or with a partner, and it just builds up to more and more blocks. And it's like, there are no rules, you know, we can let ourselves go in whatever way we need to, as long as it's in safe conditions. You know, we're not going, right, I need to punch someone, and we're going to punch someone because you're getting angry, or there's those places in town now where you can pay to smash things up with a bat for like an hour, which kicked off in Japan. And it's things like that, again, if they're done in a healthy manner and we're working with the unconscious energies. Like for me, having a lot of repressed anger from growing up, it helps when I go to do a punching bag or learn a martial art, like it goes, because that helps me tap into a strength and a power that I was trying to fight and resist for so long, because anger's bad. I felt terrible when it was being pushed on me all the time, and I didn't know how to work with it or how to combat it. So just don't do it. And if I feel it, shouldn't be feeling that. Or if anybody's angry, you're wrong because you're angry. And it's like, no man, that's a feeling, and the energy needs to be worked with constructively and safely and understood. And that's where we learn from other people, and we get the right help, and we get the right understanding of what that energy is and what to do with it. Because if we don't, that's where it stays in the unconscious, and it gets bigger, and we feel it gets uglier and harder to deal with. And we either become sadder or more false, or we're always trying to pretend like things are fine, but it's like, no, that's in there and it's fine. It is. Just learn how we can let it go and become whole. Because we've always got the good and the bad side. How do you constructively use those forces and those energies for your life? Like, it's balance. It's not trying to be wholly good all the time and being like a saint. If we get to that point, great, but that's a hell of a lot of refinement of understanding, acceptance and growing. But it's to know that those denser energies, they're in us, and it's how do we work with them and, not let them overcome us, but know that they're just as acceptable in the right way as the good side of us.
Yeah. I think it's also the way we've been brought up as kids, from our parents and from our teachers mainly. I think teachers have been a huge influence on our lives, and it comes down to what kind of education have you received for you to deal with these situations. And again, going back to Eastern philosophy, I don't think I remember any system I don't know if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong guys, but I don't know if I remember any system that we got taught as kids in the Eastern side of things, when I was getting taught about my Eastern culture, where we had to use any form of discharge. I just think the types of jobs people were doing back then, the farming jobs and manual labor, is a form of catharticism as well. So catharticism, how do I say it?
Yeah,
catharticism. And so we already had those releases in place. So whether you felt stressed a bit, you had those little moments where you could kind of release yourself. Plus the teachings would teach you how to deal with it before you get that. So you never get those symptoms. So you treat it before you've even had those symptoms. And I think we just don't have that system in place. And this is where yoga becomes very important. And not yoga in the Western sense of yoga, which is great, performing the physical postures and the asanas is great, but practice the spiritual side of things, practice the philosophy of yoga, which comes down to cultivating your growth and your self-realization so that you become a stronger person to deal with these situations. So I think that's really important. And having a daily sadhana, so having a practice that you stick with every single day that allows you to cultivate yourself. I was just listening to there's a man on YouTube called Swami Muktanand. He's a monk from India, become very famous on YouTube again, like most of the mystics. And there's something he said that was really profound for me. He talked about a very rich Indian man in India. He had an industry, what was his name? Arvind Mofatlal. And anyone who's Indian listening to this podcast will know who he is. So he established a textile firm in India, making hundreds of millions of pounds or rupees and also dollars. And even though his company was doing really well or sometimes wasn't doing so great, every single day he would dedicate 2 hours a day, lock himself into a room and practice his daily spiritual practices, meditation, focusing on himself, practicing gratitude as well, and then selfless service, so giving as much as he possibly could as well. So in those 2 hours, if a director or someone important in the company wanted to get hold of him, people will tell him, nope, for those 2 hours, it's his own practice, and he doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care whether his company fluctuates or, is going to hell or is doing really well. He'll dedicate those 2 hours every single day to this practice. And he was so amazing at giving to charity as well. He never once put his name on anything. So he would do all these charitable things and no one would know anything about it. There wouldn't be any attention. He would just do it behind closed doors because he felt that once you release that energy and you expose it to people and say, look, I've done all this, that kind of strokes the ego a bit. It brings it up a level. And I think we need to get into the habit of doing that. Obviously, I'm not expecting us to kind of give as much as we can, but what you want to do is you want to create an environment where selfless service and gratitude are a huge part of your practice. And from that, we avoid these situations where we're in right now, where we have mental health problem as a huge societal issue. It's because we're so self-absorbed and focused on our own practice that we're not focusing on other people. So when you focus on people that are in less situations that are worse off than you are, you start to have a sense of gratitude and appreciation for where you are in life as well. So moving the attention away from ourselves and putting it on other people and helping people out, I think that is the sort of move forward towards helping ourselves out mentally.
You can't help but feel good, can you? That's wonderful that person has those 2 hours as well dedicated for himself regardless of the business, because as soon as you say that, the thought comes in is like, you can see people like, oh yeah, he might be doing his meditation, but the business is, we've just lost a sale or something.
Or there's a big business opportunity coming, and someone's come in and saying, we want a partnership with you, massive deal. You're just like, nope, 2 hours are for me. So
I'm on board with that, man. I love that because it's business. It's always going to come and go. Money's always going to come and go. You'll be rich one day, you can be poor the next. And obviously you're building towards something, but that is temporary. And even your achievements or legacy and all this stuff, it's like, but how are you feeling now and what are you doing now? It's like, oh yeah, but I've got to build up this first and then I'll work on that stuff. It's that goal or that sense of us that wants to build that thing is the thing that's being built, not just the goal itself. It's, I have to build goals, I have to get this, I have to do that. While he sounds extremely balanced. He's like, this is how I work and I make this money and I do this with it, but I'm also working on myself on such a deep level, which is a greater connection than the material world because it's built on his whatever his spiritual beliefs are and his connection to soul and to heart and to life, because it's always a mix match of the physical world and the spiritual world. But for me, it's like the spiritual world has only ever provided me with greater insights, greater love, greater connection, a deeper understanding, and led me to the work that I do now, which I would not give up for 10 million, but 100 million pounds. So I said, right, here's this money, you stop doing your breath work and stop doing healing sessions, I'd be like, no chance, keep the money, I'm fine doing what I'm doing, like, because it's coming from somewhere bigger than the physical world will ever be able to give me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's letting that run through and being aligned with it. And man, like the dreams and what our heart says, that's what it's about, you know. And maybe it's become too cliche that we can't follow that enough.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know what they want to do, or they think they should know too early, like in your 20s or your 30s even. It's like, oh, I still don't want to do. Fine, that's what life's about, is you get to go through these different things. Don't keep doing the same thing, because obviously it's not there, you've not found it, so do other things, like we said in the last podcast, have the goals that evolve.
For sure.
But it's to, when you get in alignment with what you want to do, like there'll be temptations to say, oh, why don't you just come and do this job now and get the security back and get this money back, or come and meet these people, rub shoulders with them. And it's like, if that's going to pull you away from your path, not worth it, you know.
I think the most gratifying jobs you will find are serving.
Yeah.
Any way you can serve, because we have different ways of looking at service. So consciousness is designed, so any form of consciousness is designed for service. You look at the most successful businesses, you are serving other people. You look at the most successful industries, you're serving other people, you're providing other people some sort of benefit by providing them a service. So, you know, we talk about the properties of fire being heat and warmth, water being wet and permeable, etc. Well, consciousness is designed for service, and especially selfless service, basically. So you're serving without any attachment towards the rewards of your service. So there's a quote in the Bhagavad Gita that says that you have a right to your actions, or the choice of your actions, but you don't have a right to the fruits of your actions. So, you know, if you give to someone and they give you a positive sort of result, you know, they say thank you to you and they show you gratitude, that's great, that makes us feel great. But at the same time, if they turn around and they don't accept it, or they put you down, or they insult you, that shouldn't affect you, you know, because you've done your part, which is you've given to them, regardless of whether they are happy about it or are they dissatisfied by it. You have no right to that fruit of action. So whatever happens as a result of your actions, it's no longer your right to decide or to cling on to. So when we become, and the thing is, we in a society become attached to that. So if I give to someone, they need to have a positive response, you know. Then, so let me give you an example again. So if you know, you give it to a homeless person and he tells you to piss off, how does that make you feel? You know, that ruins your entire day because you're too attached to the actual result. Yeah. Whereas if you just gave for the sake of giving, and you just gave because you wanted to give, and you just left it at that, it wouldn't really affect you either way.
Yeah.
And that moves into other realms of our life, being too attached to the result. So let's say I study a degree and then I expect and I'm demanding that I get a job after my degree. You know, again, we're attached to the fruits of our action, where life never works like that. Life works in all these crazy twists and turns where, you know, you will perform a particular sort of, you'll take one path and that leads you to another path. So I think it's very important for us to live a life where we're not attached to the results of what we're doing as well. So enjoy what we're doing, do it purely for giving, but then don't get too attached to the actual fruits.
So what's going to come from it? Yeah, two really good points for self-reflection on both those examples. So one, the homeless one, it's like, one, there's a homeless guy. Why are we giving, first of all?
Yeah.
Do we want to feel good? Are we trying to feel charitable? There's once a friend who put a statement on Facebook about, so this person wanted money, I gave them a £50 note, and it made their day. I was like, then you've got to look at the judgmental mind of it. For me, it's like, oh, why is this being shared, and what are these people saying? One, it's good to share because, this person's been charitable, so that's inspired me, maybe I'll go and do that. Or is it coming from, I'm going to be charitable so I can tell people, you know, there's always which parts we feed in. You could still say you're doing a good deed by being charitable, but I think it's also to consider, especially in Manchester, when we're giving to homeless people, are we giving in a sense that it's senseless giving? Like, are we continue to fuel drugs or drinks? And again, it's not judgment on people's life. Like, there's a very tough lifestyle and position they're in, and it's all in for whatever reasons that are beyond my knowing. But are there more beneficial and healthier ways around? Like, there's the charity that you can give to that take care of the homeless and give them food rather than feeding it so somebody can keep their addiction going on the side. You know.
So if you're insecure about that, I think that ideal way of approaching it is either you give it to the charity itself, or you give them something you know that they can't really utilize. So maybe utilize for a bad reason. So you don't give them money if you feel like that's what's going to happen. You give them food or clothes or something that they can make use of.
Yeah.
So that's one way of avoiding that situation. But if you purely give money, then understand that if they use it for cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, that's no longer in your action to receive.
It is, and is there karma involved with that as well? Because I gave, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, you were in position of handing out the tool, and you gave maybe a machine gun to a toddler. Well, I give it something to do, And it's like, well,
comes back to that.
Think of the fruits of what's going to occur by that act of giving.
Yeah.
So it's not just to be charitable, which is an amazing thing. It's a lovely thing, but what's the knock-on effect of that? So there's always those points of self-reflection, and knowing where it's coming from. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? We think we're doing a good thing, we think we're doing it right, but really, without deeper self-reflection, maybe we're doing something that isn't beneficial. And then the second point about university is, I've had a few friends and a previous partner, and they were very dedicated to what they did in university, the course that they went on. And then after finishing and then getting a job in that specific industry, and finding the industry was not what they wanted, and it was not what university was about, she wouldn't let go of that what she wanted, of the outcome. So tried another job in the industry, exact same circumstances, same kind of people, same kind of style, wasn't for her. Tried a third job, same thing, and it just led to misery and unhappiness, and thinking that person wasn't good enough, and really it just wasn't what she wanted. But after spending 3-4 years at uni, people don't want to let go, even though that time was for that. If you can make something of it, great. But it's different. It's continually, it's evolving, it's changing. If that doesn't fit you, can you let go? And what a lesson that is as well. Well, I've studied that and I put money to that. Not just in the sense of university, but we can use that as a point of reflection through our lives. What have we done that we think, well, I've gone this far, so I must keep going? And it's like, oh, no, that's not how life is. It's that goal that always evolves, is get to where you've got, get to where you are on the mountain, have a look and go, oh yeah, the view's nice, it's good here. You might want to stop there, but you can keep going up the mountain and get a higher point of view. But you've got to move to get up there. It's not just staying where you are, and it might be taking a different path or a different route. If you're stuck and you're unhappy and you've been doing the same thing for, I always say, if you're doing the same thing for 6 months and it's not changed, you have to do something different. Like if your feelings haven't changed and you know that it's not just a negative mindset towards something, it's coming from outside and you're in the wrong place. Wouldn't get a tattoo if I'd not thought about it for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it had to be sure. And when you mulled it over and you're still having that thought, it's time to go, it's time to do something new. But
it definitely requires a bit of commitment as well. So if you feel like something isn't working out within a month, look at the situation, be more conscious about your decision, and reflect on whether you stopping to do that or you changing to something else, whether that's going to have a negative effect on you as well. Because change is obviously a hard thing to do, and you have to look at the entire situation and then take it on that merit. I find that really interesting. What time are we on?
11.
We are 34 minutes into it. Couple of the other things we want to talk about.
What else can we branch into now?
We stopped right.
We hit it there, didn't we? Right,
we hit a dead end there, which was it's perfectly where it was supposed to stop.
Yeah, man.
I don't know where else to get into now.
I think we can wrap it up there.
I think we can wrap it up there. This will probably be a slightly shorter one. 30 minutes, I think this one went on to.
Yeah.
And you've got your client in the next 20 minutes anyway.
I do indeed.
Okay, so this was podcast number 3, and we talked about some very deep shit. It was more deep than the last one. I think.
It's nice. Like, I feel the difference in conversation too. Like goal-based and training-based, it doesn't set me on fire, but while we're getting into the deeper aspects of the first podcast and this one, like, I love it, man. I just feel it's like, yes, this is what I want to be talking about, and this is what I love.
Perfect. Right, guys. Okay, so you can view this podcast on YouTube. We also want to stick it on SoundCloud and Spotify. Quite a few people messaging me about that. We'll get that sorted out, and hopefully we'll catch you guys on the next one. Yep.
See you later. All the best, guys.